The Ring, just because you've seen the movie doesn't mean you know the story. Hi, my name is Cody Siengdahl, and I am the author that you know. I'm the author of soon to be 6 novels, 5 novels out on Amazon, 2 nonfiction works. And even though I am, if you do know me, or I am known as a historical fiction author, I love horror. First of all, I read many genres, including horror and science fiction and fantasy and contemporary and all sorts of things. I typically, before we go any further, I just want to say one thing. I have something wrong with my mouth. I've been going to dentists and doctors, and they're still trying to figure out what's going on. In fact, I had a CAT scan that didn't. We can see there's something inflamed. We're going to MRI next, and then once we do that, my doctor is going to be able to go and do some surgery to do a biopsy to see what's wrong. But what's happening is it's causing the inside of my mouth, and especially my tongue, to swell, and my gums to ache. So I just want to say, as an excuse, because I'm all about excuses, it's never my fault. That's a key part of character, is it's never your fault. It's always somebody else's. But anyway, if I talk funny or I slur my speech just because things are not right inside my mouth. So anyway, enough of feeling sorry for myself. Let's get on with it. So first of all, like I said, I'm known for writing historical fiction. I have a series right now that starts with the American Civil War, and then it goes back for a prequel in the Mexican-American War, and then the 5th book is the Austro-Prussian War, and I'm writing a Franco-Prussian War book now that hopefully will be out early next year. But I like to read all genres. I guess I wouldn't say all genres, but I like many genres, and I will say that horror is very dear to me. In fact, there was a time where I wrote horror. I would say I started writing in the 6th grade. I wrote my first short story, and kept writing off and on ever since. I wrote, I would say, fantasy as a child, and then as a teenager and early adult, I was going through my gothic punk rock phase, and I wrote horror. And if I would have stayed on that track, I would have been writing horror. I like it a lot. And so much so, well, I'll tell you this, as an author, they say you should read in your own genre, both classics and contemporary, and I do. I read my rivals. I mean, I'm friends with most of my rivals, but, I want to see how other people do it. And also, I'm a consumer of the product. I write because I am a reading fan, that number one. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. I don't think you could be a good writer if you don't love to read first. I hold to that quite a bit. So I spend most of the year reading within my genre. Every once in a while, I'll allow myself out something outside of the genre. I think it's, first of all, I think cross-genre reading is good. I mean, you should always be reading in your genre, but it's good to read cross-genre as well, because there are things that people do in other genres that might inspire you. I will tell you this. Even in my book, there are aspects of horror in it. You might not recognize it right away as horror, but a lot of times I like to do kind of like the mystery and reveal. And sometimes that mystery is something scary. Like if you read Blood for Blood at Nashville, there's a scene where this character Tom, after the massacre at Fort Pillow, goes down by the river to be by himself, and he starts crying. And out of the mud, where they buried many of the bodies, he sees some what he thinks is a mud monster crawling out of the ground. So it is a moment of horror. It'll turn out to be something explainable, but almost in every genre, you can use things like, well, like I said, like for me, I will use horror. I will use romance. There's usually a romantic subplot in my stories as well. There's an action adventure war story, but there's also some kind of romantic interlude as well. Comedy. I wouldn't. Oh, I'm not even facing. Microphone's facing the other way. I hope this is better. Sorry about that. Um, this is my microphone here. I had it facing the wrong way. Uh, um, I wouldn't say I'm a comedian, but I would say I'm a humorist, and so there are many of moments and lines in my books that I'm hoping are funny. Uh, so you know, you may be in one genre, but there's a lot to be gained from the other genres as well. And by the way, just like me, if your readers are anything like you, they might like other genres too, and they also might be reading horror or historical fiction or fantasy or science fiction. All right, so I can't spend. Well, first of all, if I read horror all the time, it would burn me out. All right, so I'd get bored with it. So, but I do like it. So what I do, and I've been doing this for a few years now, is that every October I read as many horror books as I can. And this year I've read. I think this is my second. I'm a slow reader. Usually it takes me about a month to read a book, but this one I read I think in about 2 weeks. Um, I read um, what was the one? The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. I probably should have done a review for that as well. Uh, I will tell you that I don't review every book I read. Typically, if the author is dead, I don't do the review because it's not going to do him or her any good. Um, I mean, I guess it would, but I usually do public reviews to help other authors, whether I know them, and sometimes I don't. But I know what it's like to be an author. I know how important reviews are, especially positive ones. And so it's my way of kind of giving back to try to help other authors, even if we're not friends, or even if we're not friends yet. Uh, so, why did I review this one? Well, because usually I only review books that are living authors and in my own genre. But uh, I read this, and first of all, Koji Suzuki, who wrote this, is alive. He's I think he's like 67 years old. Uh, and even though he may never know who I am or see any of my review of his book, uh, the guy is still selling books on Amazon, and so it still benefits him. So I think, well, why not? And I think one of my favorite things to do, and this is even back when I was a film student back in college. I got my degree in film studies. Because for a very short period of my life, I thought I wanted to be a filmmaker. I've been disabused of that. No show. I would like other people to make films of my books, but I'd rather just keep writing books and let other people. I mean, I'll come up on the set and say hello to everybody, and I'll do a cameo if they want. But other than that, I've done enough television production to film me for the rest of my life when it comes to things like that. And I still like cameras, and I'm still a cinephile. But even back when I was a film student, I loved to read a book and then see the movie, and so that I could see what they did different, because they are different formats, and they uh, and so sometimes things that work in a novel don't work well in a movie, and vice versa. And it's interesting. And sometimes things that do work in one work great in the other. So a lot of times when I write, I like to think of it very cinematic. In fact, when I get stuck in a book, uh, I think if I were watching this movie, if this were a movie and I'm watching it right now, what would be the next scene? And there's a lot of things I do just that I learned from editing, like even in news, like starting scenes with like a sound or or a sound bite or something to kind of do an in media res kind of thing. So anyway, I'm rambling a lot. The movie The Ring is, well, I'll tell you what. Let's read the review. And by the way, if you want to read along, or you want to read it after you watch this, I put the link to my review down below. And this is how I do this. I read a book, I write a review. I put it on Goodreads and on Amazon. Even if I didn't buy the book from Amazon, they'll still let you review it. It'll take a little longer, and especially since you, um, if they know you as a reviewer, a regular reviewer, they give you some leeway. And I always take a picture of the book to show Amazon. I know it. All right, I got it. I'm so excited when I get comments. Lloyd Elmore Jr., you should clean your palate and write a horror book. I might someday. I have a short story that is horror-esque that one day I might dust off and see if I can't get it put into somebody's compilation or something. But yeah, that would be fun. I think, and you'd probably be better at this than me, Lloyd. I feel like horror usually does better in the short story or in the short form narrative, like the short story or the short film. I see a lot of great concepts that made great short stories or short films stretched out and further than they. I guess what I'm saying is that there are great horror novels and there are great horror films, but I think that's an art. I mean, it's truly an art and a science to take a concept, a horror concept, and make it last out that long. So yeah, I might. To be honest with you, I know that I have a few viewers. I have been writing. I've been picking away at erotica, and I will never publish it under my name. I have a pen name that I've only started writing one story, and I might put it out on KDP under a really funny pen name, and not tell anybody about it. And people, and if I do tell anybody about it, it'll be on a very private level. But I have done that a little bit. And there, by the way, like I said, in my historical novels, there are elements of horror. There are elements of romance, erotica. Um, there are elements of fantasy, although there's no actual fantasy in it, if that makes any sense. Um, there are elements of other genres. Okay, Lloyd says, um, I th- I think I agree. Not sure if I'd write a whole book of horror, just stories. Yeah, I think a lot of times, like a great concept. I mean, every idea and concept has um, its own kind of time frame, and I think it's really hard to do a a long format when it comes to horror, and even the ones that, well, we could. This is a whole other topic that I could get into. But you can do it, and I've seen it done well. But like that, like the Hellbound Heart, which is the novel that Hellraiser came from. And if you've seen Hellraiser, you have read the book. I mean, I read the book. I've seen the movie a million times. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite horror movies. And by the way, so is The Ring. But when I read the book from Clive Barker, I want to applaud the people who made the movie. They basically gave you the book. The only thing I would say is that they gave Pinhead, I think he's called the engineer in the book, a bigger role than he does in the book. But because what a great visual character that they created with him. But anyway, all right, let's get on with it. Let's see if I can pull up this. We'll start with I'll read my review and then we'll talk about it. Let's see here. Okay. Sorry, people. 15 minutes in, we finally get to the freaking review. All right, I have a blog, and it's part of my whole review process. And we'll get into that. All right, book review of The Ring by Koji Suzuki. A paranormal. Sorry, my mouth makes it. Sorry, my tongue is swollen. I can barely speak. A paranormal thriller as thoroughly Japanese as an ancient kami demon. Like most readers today, I saw the American horror movie The Ring before I knew about this book. I had even seen the Japanese film, although I don't remember much of it other than the feel was different from the Hollywood version. I believe the American movie is a remake of the Japanese film, but not a direct adaptation of the novel. I'd like to watch both films again now that I've read the original source material. I'm interested in seeing how they differ. Although the American film is now a horror classic in itself, I'd say the book is more of a paranormal and maybe even psychological thriller than a horror novel. It almost reads like a crime procedural rather than a ghost story. Um, Asakawa is an investigative reporter looking into the mysterious death of four teenagers who died of a sudden heart failure at the exact same time in different places, but all with the same horrified look on their faces. Sorry, that's my tongue. In the course of his investigations, he too becomes infected with the curse that seems to kill its victims exactly 1 week after they watch a mysterious videotape. He enlists his eccentric friend, I'm going to screw up this name, Ryuji, in a race against time to solve the mystery behind the tape before this horrific death comes for them too. The book has many of the main beats of the American movie, but is different enough to be surprising and engaging all the way through. The backstory of the tape and the mysterious girl is thoroughly Japanese and far more interesting than the movie. I enjoyed seeing it unfold as the two heroes work their way through the clues. The character Ryuji is quirky and a lot of fun and even funny at times. He plays off Asakawa's straight man demeanor very well. I have to say, there is a disturbing bit about Ryuji's backstory that might be alarming to modern day Western readers. To this, I say, this is a Japanese novel written in 1991. It's from a different culture and era. Also, don't let this deter you. Stick with it because, as with all good storytelling, nothing is thrown away. There are reasons that things that seemingly have little to do with the plot are there. Suzuki knew what he was doing when he wrote this. Trust him. The end sets up the sequel Spiral, which I'm compelled to read immediately. That wasn't my plan, but now I have to know what happens next. Keep in mind that Spiral is the sequel to the novel. I believe the American movie Ring 2 is a sequel to the first movie and not an adaptation of the second novel. I recommend jumping in with me into this six-part series of novels. If the rest are as good as the first one, I'm sure we're in for a ride. And then, as I always do, I do if it's available, there's a preview here from Amazon. Oh, the preview is unavailable. Okay. But the preview is available for my book. Which there you go. I'm gonna go too far into that. All right, so let's get back to business here. That's me. There we go. All right. I'm gonna close this tab here. All right, there you are. So yeah, so the interesting thing about the book is it well, like I said in my review, most of us know it as a movie and a very good movie at that. I would say that The Ring was one of my top 10. It freaked me out. I think the scariest part to me in the whole movie was when they found the girl from the beginning of the movie. Like they opened the movie with that scene of her, having a slumber party or spending the night with her friend, and then they don't show you what happens, but then like when they're talking about it, when the reporter who's a woman in the movie is talking to her sister about it, there's a flashback and you see what the girl looked like when they found her, and her face is all contorted and she's turned gray, and it's horrifying. And I think that image haunted me, and it was in my nightmares. I actually had The Grudge, which is a very similar film, similar story. I'm sure it's probably a novel as well. I actually literally had a nightmare from watching that movie. I saw The Grudge and then had a nightmare. I was living in Japan at that time. That's another thing that kind of drew me to this, is that a lot of you might not know, but I lived in Japan for a year. I taught English there, and so there was a little bit of a nostalgia reading this novel, because the original novel takes place in the Tokyo area where I lived. I lived in uh, Matsu, Matsuri. No, I can't think of it. Right outside of Kashiwa. So I understand a lot of the things that are, when he's like getting around the city and what life is there, even though it's like 1991. I was there 10 years later in 2001. I'm sorry, I was there in 2002. But right off the bat, there's a big, I mean, not that it's a big difference, but the original character is a man. And I think what happened is I did some research, and they did a made for TV movie version of it in Japan, that I think it's called The Ring and then semicolon something. And that one is, I guess, closer to the original book, which is what I read. Then they made it, and that one's hard to find. Then they made a theatrical release, a Japanese movie for the theater, and that one you can find. In fact, we have that queued up on Tubi. It's free on Tubi. So is the American one, and so that came out like in '98, and that one I have seen before, but I barely remember, or maybe I've only seen parts of it. I remember that it was good, but it was very Japanese. The Japanese just have a different way of really art when it comes. I mean, and all their art, they're very austere. So whereas the American movie is very dramatic with like really intense cinematography and orchestral music, and it's very textured and very rich. And the Japanese are very austere with, like, if you look at their paintings, even the writing is kind of that way, and it makes it's kind of refreshing in a way. I find I've read a couple Japanese novels. I mean, the English translation, of course, but they have a lighter way of writing, and more austere way that makes it very readable, and I like it a lot. I like it a lot, and I like Koji Suzuki. Like I said in my review, I have it right here. So I got this from the library, and as I was finishing, I'm like, this is too good, and I'm gonna get this done before Halloween, so I might be able to sneak in another book. So here's the second book, Spirals, that I am gonna start reading probably today or tomorrow, and hopefully get this done. I don't know if I'll do a review, but I guess I will. Like I said, if it's a living author, regardless of the genre, I feel like I owe them a review to help them out. And even though Suzuki is probably doing a lot better than I am, I haven't had multiple movies made of any of my books. It's always helpful to do reviews for people. So anyway, the Japanese movie came out, and it's good, and we're gonna watch it, and I suggest you do too. What I really suggest is read the book, then go watch the Japanese movie, then watch the American one. The American one, and usually I don't like remakes, or I'm always like the original is the best, or whatever. I really like the American one. I really do. I thought, but by the time we get there to the American version, I will say that I'm more familiar with the American movie. Many of the same beats are in this. Like, there's a lot of the same things that I remember from the movie, but it's still very different. The story obviously is different about how the tape is I can't remember how the movie says the tape is created, or even if they get into that. But this will tell the story about how the tape is created. It'll tell the story about the mysterious girl, and even tells how maybe her mother is initially infected with whatever this thing is that causes. The one thing is that, and these are like, I won't go too far into. I won't do any like hard spoilers, but I might talk about a little about some of the details here that won't spoil the book. But uh, you get into the story about not only the mysterious girl but her mother, and that there is um, telepathy, and I think that's in the movie or the second movie, is that there's some kind of ability, tel- telepathy, when you can read thoughts and project thoughts. Um, and they go back into time and they kind of explain like post World War II, like in the 50s. Of, well, they explain the mother first and then the daughter, and it's a very interesting backstory. Um, but I guess what I'm saying is the Japanese version is an adaptation of the book, and they made changes, and then the American version is an adaptation of the Japanese film. So it's not directly taken from the novel. So by the time you get to the American film, it's a different story, for sure. So having said that, if you've seen the American movie, you can definitely read this, and enjoy it and be surprised by it. Um, my understanding is that there might be a Japanese or even a Korean version of this book, but Ring 2 is not this book. Ring 2 is just a direct sequel from the movie The Ring. The other thing I would say about this is that, and maybe it's because I've seen the movie and I know what's going on, but I wouldn't say this is scary. I would not say this is a horror book. Um, it's creepy at times, but it's not scary like I've read Stephen King novels and other scary books that gave me the creeps that I regretted reading before I turned off the lights, because now I'm scared. There really wasn't any of that in this. This is more of a thriller, as I said in my review. It's more of a paranormal thriller, maybe a psychological thriller as well. And it's more of a, like I say, a procedural, in which the main character is he kind of comes across this story, and it intrigues him, and he's an investigative reporter, as I say, and in his research into this, he ends up watching the tape, and there's something about this tape that once you've watched it, you've got 7 days before you die, and now he's desperately trying to find uh, uh, a way to get out of it. So which is a really interesting storytelling device, right? Because it's one thing for an investigative reporter or a police detective to want to solve a case, right? But by making it that if he doesn't solve the case, he's going to die, ups the ante. I think it's a great storytelling device, is that he's got to solve the mystery, or he too will die a horrific death, like the victims that he's researching about. So I thought that was great. It made the book. It made me want to read the book, to keep reading, because I wanted to know what happens. And Suzuki does a really good job of connecting the clues, so that you don't get it all at once. You slowly kind of learn both the backstory and eventually how to solve the mystery, and to prevent the death. So, and then if you haven't seen the movie, I would definitely say that it's surprising at the end, but there's some difference to it, in the way that this book is set up afterwards. That I don't think I've seen Ring 2. I know that they didn't they didn't do this. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm looking forward to see what the second one is like, and to see if it's scary or once again more of a procedural thriller as this. So that's it for the review. Let's see what's going on with me. Yeah, it's Thursday, early afternoon. Yeah, and we're getting one of these knocked out. I try to do one a week. Sometimes they go, a week and a half, 2 weeks in between. But I think I did the last one on Sunday. So and the reason why I'm doing this now is I finished the book today, and I feel that it's better to do the review as soon as possible, if not right away after reading something, because it's still very fresh in my mind, and so I have, I can talk about it, I can write about it, and by formula. And by the way, everything I do online, I am self-promoting, even when I'm promoting other people. I'm always promoting myself. So this is how I do this. I'm creating content that I think is useful. I think that somebody who is thinking about or looking for a good suggestion of a book that may not be mine, this is one that they can pick up and read. But at the same time, I'm creating traffic for my social media pages. I basically, when I read a book, I finish it, I write a review for Amazon and Goodreads. Then I do a WordPress article, and that is, WordPress is one of my various platforms of social media. It's a blog spot where I mostly just do reviews. It's basically long format social media. I write articles there as opposed to posts, and then I take that article. Oh, I write the article, but then I also, at the end of every article, it has a preview for one of my books. So in a way, my book is like an advertisement in the article, and then I share it out on social media and Twitter. In fact, my friend and fellow author Angus Donald shared my review of The Ring on Twitter. Thank you, Angus, if you're watching. And you see how that builds up, and also it's a little bit of social proof, because I kind of set myself up as, an expert, being an author and talking about other books. So, and then also just it builds camaraderie and goodwill amongst authors, because I don't do bad reviews. I'm not lying when I say I liked a book. And my feeling is this: if I either like it personally, I either like it or I don't like it. If I like it, 5 stars. If I don't like it, I don't review it. It's just that easy. And the reason why is because I'm trying to help other authors. I wouldn't steer you wrong, so I wouldn't. If I didn't think the book was any good, I just wouldn't hear about it. I wouldn't talk about it. I would just move on and read the next one. And because I know I don't want to hurt another author. I don't want to hurt somebody's career, because I know how important it is. So that's basically how I do that. All right, what's going on with me? Let's. I wouldn't say I'm struggling. I'm in between part 4 and 5 of my current work in progress, which is the French Fiasco. And the part 5 is really the story that I wanted to tell after Blood for Blood at Nashville. And part 5 of this book was originally going to be the big finale of the Prussian Prince, because when I first conceived of the Prussian Prince, it was going to be a Franco-Prussian War novel, in which what happens in part 5 happens. Part 5 of the French Fiasco was supposed to happen in the Prussian Prince. But once I started working on the Prussian Prince, I realized once I started conceiving it, that there was a 5-year gap between the end of the American Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War. And so I had to come up with what would Carl be doing, my main character, in between, because there were several ideas I had, and one of them required that Carl doesn't know something. There's something that he doesn't know in the Prussian Prince that he finds out at the end of the book. And I couldn't let that go 5 years. There's no way that he would go 5 years and not find out. So I was in a real jam, because the the ending, the conclusion that I wanted, that will now be in part 5, had to happen in France, but the other story couldn't. And so I realized I had 2 books. And so I said, okay, let's do the Prussian Prince this way, an Austro-Prussian book, and the story is basically the Odyssey. After the war, after the American Civil War, just like Odysseus, Carl wants to return to his wife, but all sorts of things. So what does the character, usually when you write a novel, you think about, here's my character, what does he want? And what are the things getting in his way? That's usually what a plot is for a book. So in The Prussian Prince, the character wants to be reunited with his wife, who he left behind to go get revenge in the American Civil War. That was the Blood for Blood in Nashville is a revenge story in which Carl re-enters the war to get revenge. So in The Prussian Prince, he's gotten his revenge, and now all he wants to do is come home to his wife, and that puts him on an odyssey that takes him to Germany and into the Austro-Prussian War. So now we're writing the French fiasco. I don't want to talk too much. Let's just say that Carl gets, caught between the cogs of 2 empires, basically, the rise of the German Empire and the fall of the French one, and in it something's going to happen. So the first, I would say, 3/4 of the book, or 4/5 of the book, are finished, and I have to finish writing part 5. But in order to do so, I have to set it up well, and I put a lot of, as I've been writing this book, I put a lot of the creative decisions that are going to take place later on. I put those decisions off. And then once I got done with part 4, I decided, okay, well, I have to really think about this. So I sat down and I thought, okay, what are the elements and what are the things that I know I want to have happen in part 5? And so I wrote those out, and I said, okay, in order to do that, what do I need to go back and fix and insert in part 1 through 4? And then I wrote a list of that, and then I started working on those things. And and some of those things, as I started working on them, I made new decisions of, like, you know what, I'm not going to put that into part 5, or I'm going to reveal this some here or over here or somewhere else. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like developmental editing is what I'm doing. I'm doing developmental editing on the first 4 parts so that I can then start writing part 5. So it's tedious. Right now, what I need to do is write an uprising that happens amongst the French after a battle, after the battle of not Saarbrücken, but Spicheren, or one of those battles. Yeah, Spicheren. After the Battle of Spicheren, an uprising happens in multiple cities, and so I have to. There's a particular city where I'm going to have it happen because I'm bringing in a character that was in The Prussian Prince is making a return, and I need that. I need to make that story make sense when we resolve it in the end. So that's where I am right now. As far as upcoming dates, and just to say that maybe by the end of next week, I'll be done doing that that developmental editing of what I've written so far, and then I can start in earnest writing part 4 or part 5. And I'm hoping that I can keep it under 120. If I can get under 12,000 words, that'd be great. But I'm trying to keep the book around 80,000 words. Well, it's around 80,000 words now, so I don't want to go that much over that because I want to keep my books tighter. I want to keep them. I don't want my books to be 120,000 words anymore. I want them to be about 80, for multiple reasons. Okay, let's do upcoming events. Let's see if I have this open. No, I don't. Okay, hang on. Just to let you, I have a lot of dates coming up now that that to tell you about that that I'd like to see you if you can come out and if I can get this open. Now that I'm on the spot, my computer doesn't want to work. There we go. Open this up. Oh, it's really being difficult. There we go. Okay. So set list. And it's been really slow. Okay, here we go. All right, present. Yeah, it doesn't like to work a whole lot harder than it already is when you're streaming. Okay. Like I said, I have a swollen tongue, so it's hard for me to talk. I'm just waiting for this to open in slow motions. In slow motion. There we go. Notes. Share. Hopefully that opens up here. All right, here we go. So, and is it showing on your end? Browser cast. Huh. Okay, well, I can't get it to pop up on your screen, so I'll just tell you. Okay, God, everything's so tedious. Okay, let's just. I don't know what this is. All right, close that down. Everything's a nightmare. Nothing ever works. Okay, so let's see. Next Tuesday, this is not public, but next Tuesday I'm auditioning. There's a Irish bar band called Johnny and the Empty Pints, and they found me on Band Mix. Band Mix is a place where musicians can find other musicians. Is a place. It's kind of like dating, but for bands and musicians. So if you're building a band or you're looking to get into a band, you can have a profile there. And so I have a profile there as a fiddler, and they reached out to me. I think they reached out to several fiddlers. And long story short, they want me to audition on Tuesday. And if I pass the audition, then they gig a lot, and they say paying gigs. That's great. And especially during the month of March, which is where St. Patrick's Day is. They sent me about 50 of their tunes. The guy is he does always get back, but he doesn't get back quickly. So like he reached out to me on Bandmix, and I said, yeah, absolutely, I'm interested. You know, let me know if you want to set up an audition. Then I didn't hear from like 10 days. I figured, oh well, you know, I could see that he was looking at several fiddlers, so I thought, okay, well, he probably found someone, you know. And then about 10 days later, he's like, hey, you know, sorry it took me so long. Yeah, we'd like to have you audition. And at first, they were going to have me just come out to a gig and play with them in December. And then he said, okay, I'll send you some tunes to work on. And I said, okay, great. Or just, or he said, I'll send you some tunes and pick a few and then come out and play them with us. So I said, great. Well, then he didn't send that to me. And about 2 weeks later, he texted me like 50 songs and said, hey, we realized it's kind of that night that we were going to have you come out and play is going to be kind of a crazy night because it's the tree lighting ceremony in Franklin. And so we kind of don't want to use that as an audition, which I understand. And he said, but would you want to come out next week and do an audition with us? I'm like, sure. Well, he gave me like 50 tunes. And he said, yeah, pick, 5 or 6 of them and come play them with us. It's like drinking the ocean through a straw, man. Like, I like, how do I pick 5 tunes out of that? Half of them I don't even know, but I was able to put them into search them on YouTube. And the kind of music is, when I think Irish, I think traditional Irish, like Irish fiddle tunes, but no, it's more like Irish rock, I guess. Irish rock, like folk rock, like the Dropkick Murphys or the Flogging Molly. Surprisingly, he names a lot of Irish bands. Does not name the Pogues in there, which is weird because a lot of them sound just like the Pogues. I'm a fan of the Pogues. But anyway, I started yesterday. I just went down the list and I plugged one of the songs on the YouTube, pull up the video, and then it'd come up and play along. fortunately for me, I'm not much of a sight. I can read music, but I'm not a good sight reader. But I do have pretty good ears. So if it's in, once I figure out what key it's in and it's simple, the chord changes are simple enough, I can usually pick out the melody and I can usually pick out the chord changes just by listening to it. So I just put in the first, like I listened to the first 7 songs yesterday and played along with them, and I'm gonna do some more today. And so my strategy is, it's not enough time for me to like actually learn anything, but I'm a great, I would say great. I'm good at improvising and I have good ears. So I feel like I can just show up and say, well, just you guys pick something and I'll play. I'll try to jump in. I can do that with a fiddle. I can't do that so well with a guitar or a bass or on the piano or anything else I play. But for some reason, a fiddle, if I can hum it, I can usually play it back. It's just the way the instrument is. It's to me, it's mapped out in a way that's easy for me to think, if that makes any sense. So that'll be Tuesday, and if I get that, I'll be playing apparently quite a bit around town. That'll be fun. I love performing. I mean, whether it's doing talks, whether it was back when I was on television and doing live shots for the news, playing my fiddle, I just enjoy performing. That's one of the reasons I do this. Although this is a very poor performance with my oversized tongue that can barely talk around. So if I get that gig, and what might happen, he said, is that they are, he told me, of course, they're talking to several fiddlers. I'm pretty sure there's some better fiddlers than me on there as well. But I know how it is running bands here in Nashville. Everybody's, first of all, musicians are notoriously flaky, and you can't always, not everybody's available for everything. And that's why I've learned to like my band, I can do a gig by myself. If Paul doesn't show up, I can still play the gig, because the way I play old timey fiddle, I'm the whole band. I can because the fiddle carries the whole tune. Paul accents it, and as I add other musicians, you can make it grow into something better and bigger, but I can condense it down to just a fiddle. And the reason why I do that is because it's hard. I had a band that had 5 guys in it at one time, my own band, and I've been in bands as well that had, oh my God, when I was in the Muscadine Fives, we had like a drummer, a trombone player, a guitar player, me, a singer, and we had more than 5 people, because that was one of the jokes. It was called the Muscadine Fives, but there was 6 of us. Yeah, it was a bass, drums, singer, lead guitar, fiddle, and horn player. Yeah. And trying to get everybody available to do a gig, it's tough. So anyway, long story short, what he said to me, which makes perfect sense, is even if they pick a main guy to be their fiddle player, they might have some backups that can jump in on days. I think that's a good philosophy, unless they really codify like this is the official band. But anyway, and we'll see. I almost kind of hope I'm the backup. I mean, if I'm the primary one, then I'm gonna do. I'll make all the gigs, and I'll just make room for it in my life. But I like gigging on a regular basis. I don't know if I want to do it that much. We'll see. Speaking of gigs, on Monday morning, I'm going to be playing for Sumner County Schools. It's something that Paul, my banjo player, we're now kind of a duo, the two of us. And if we do a dance, then I just bring in like a guitar and a bass to fill us out. And like I said, just guys I know out there that maybe don't want to do everything with us, but are willing to come and do that. But Paul and I, it's part of the White House in Museum. They're doing like this Frontier Days presentation for the kids, and Paul and I do some music for that. So we did that last week at one school, and we're going to be at another one on Monday. Of course, you guys wouldn't be able to go to that. All right. So not this weekend, but the following weekend, the first weekend of November, right after Halloween, I am going to be in Springfield at the Morgan Returns Civil War reenactment, and they comp me a table every year. And basically, I'll be there with all my books, and I'll be there to sell and sign books. I'll also have my fiddle, and I'll be playing fiddle tunes for tips or just just to entertain people. I'll also probably while I'll be in uniform, I may or may not participate in the reenactment. If they invite me to, I will, but I won't. I won't try to push myself into that. But last year they brought me in because this is the South. If you didn't know this by my accent, I am not from the South. I'm from Detroit, and so a lot of these reenactments, everybody wants to be a rebel, right? Because that's the home team. And so by virtue of wearing a Yankee uniform, a lot of times I get recruited to be a Yankee, so the rebels have something to shoot at. So it's a lot of fun, though. I actually really, really enjoy that that event. And I usually sell about 30 to 40 books. Usually about 10 books a day. Hopefully, I'll do better this year. In fact, I just did inventory too, and I have enough to at least by my sales last year. I ordered another box of Blood for Blood at Nashville. I have 11 copies right now, which I sold 7 copies last year, so close. But I would rather have a bigger cushion, so I ordered another box of 20. And right now they're supposed to come a week from Sunday, but sometimes they almost always come early, a few days early. So hopefully I'll have them by then. Let's see then. And then okay, so that's Morgan on the Rim, and then and then the 19th and the 21st, I'm also doing Sumner County schools. That won't be something you'll be able to see. In December, though, I got a few things. Oh, I got to put something in here too that I forgot. On the 1st is the well, I'm sorry. On November the 30th, I will be at the Lotes House, and that's the anniversary for the Battle of Franklin, and they do a candle lighting ceremony, and they have me play fiddle. The museum is a great Civil War museum. My friend J.T. Thompson owns it, and this will be the 3rd year that I've done the memorial with them. They sell my books in the gift shop, so if you're ever there, you can pick up one of my books, a signed copy. And then either the following Sunday or the previous Sunday, I don't know when they have it booked, but I'll be doing the Reconciliation March. And basically the sons of Union veterans march from one part of the city, and the sons of Confederates march from another, and then we meet where the apex of the battle was, and we shake hands, and it's a very nice thing. I played Dixie for the rebels, and they seem to like it. So I do that. I do that every year since I started. And then I got to put this on this schedule here, but on the 16th, I believe. Well, on the 11th and 12th, I'm doing more Sumner County schools. On the 16th, I'm going to be at the Monument for the Battle of Nashville, and I just got asked today from one of the guys from the Sons of Union Veterans if I would come and play the fiddle at the event there, and I said, of course. And that means a lot to me because my 3rd book, Blood for Blood at Nashville, features the Battle of Franklin and the Battle of Nashville. So I feel like those are kind of like my home battles, my home field. So I feel like I should be a part of, participate in the memorials and the events that are about those 2 battles. And then on the 14th of December, I'll be playing at the Saunders House in Smithville. They are Mr. and Mrs. Santa Claus, and they basically open up their home to all the kids in the community. Parents can bring their kids and sit on Santa's lap, and there's cookies and fun, and I play Christmas music. Oh, I forgot. On the 7th of December is Yule Fest. That's at Master Station. Paul and we've been doing it for years now, where we play Christmas music on our fiddle and banjo, and there's other musicians there too. And they have us. We're in the fort, and there's all these little buildings, and so people can get like hot chocolate or whatever, and they have fires built. It's at night, and you can go from building, inside the fortress, right? All these old, I mean, they're replicas, but it's made to look like a 18th century fortress. And we'll be there playing. I think that's free. Let's see here. And then in March, 7th and 8th, I will be at the Mid-South Military History and Civil War Show. That's in New Haven, Mississippi, which is really a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. It's just south of Memphis. I've been doing that for several years too. They usually comp me a table, and once again, it's a pretty good event. Last year I spoke at it, and but yeah, as long as I play the fiddle, the fiddle gets you invited to the dance. They comp me a table, and then I think in June I'll be doing. Oh no, wait a minute. I need to update this because there's some things. I know in May. Yeah, I gotta update this as soon as I get off. Because I know in May, I can't remember, but I'm doing another thing at the Head Farm. It's a farm dinner, farm to dinner plate dinner or whatever. It's farm to table dinner. Basically, it's a farm, but it's like agrotainment, where they invite people out there. You pay, and there's like a gourmet chef, and it's a beautiful dinner, and there's drinks, and we play the music, and they have storytellers and things like that. A lot of fun. We just did that not too long ago, and I think I've shared some pictures of that on my social media. So that's going to be it. Please like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. Also, if you look into the in the notes, you'll see a place where you can sign up for my email list. If you sign up for my email list, I'll let you know when anything's on special. Usually just the Kindle books are typically on special. They kind of rotate what's on special. So I'll notify you about that and about any kind of public appearances and when the new book is coming out. And then also I'm on all the social media. So I'm here on YouTube, but I'm also in Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I screw around a little bit with TikTok, but not a whole lot. I'm trying to think of where else I am. Of course, the WordPress. If you click on the article that I read for you, that's on the Word. That's the link is down below as well, and you can follow me there. You can follow me on Amazon too as a you can follow authors, so that in the author, like you can follow Koji Suzuki if you like, and Amazon will let you know when Koji Suzuki's got a new book coming out, or me. So that's going to do it for me. I hope to see you around. I would say the biggest thing, if you really want to stay up to date with what I got coming out or what's going on with me, join my email list. Eventually, sometime next year, I'm going to write a novella that is going to be exclusively for the email list. So you have to be on the email list to get the story. All right. Love you guys. If you are just like me, if you love to read and you care about authors and you want them to do well and help them out, of course, buy and read their books, but give them reviews. Give them stars, first of all, ratings. 5 stars if you can. Because that helps out a lot with the algorithm. And then having written reviews also helps. It doesn't have to be as long as mine. It can just be, I really liked it, couldn't put it down, and they're done. So that's it. I don't know when I'll be back up again. I probably won't, since I got one in on Thursday early, I probably won't go live this weekend unless something really strikes me. And I got some ideas of what I want to talk about in the next few of them. So I keep a list so that I have some. So whenever I have an idea of something I can talk about when I go live, I can just kind of pick one of the things and go with it. So that's it for me. Love you guys. Have a good day, and keep reading, keep writing.